Today, we're going to look at every card that's played in an Atraxa Praetor's Voice Commander deck, because I'm looking to farm some engagement out of the Commander players today. Now, truth be told, I don't know why this is one of the S-tier commanders. I guess it can be played competitively and can be played casually, but from my perspective, it's like, you know, it's not even Wooburg. I mean, even if you wanted to play this thing for the black, blue, white, and the green, you could go an extra color and go all of them, because outside of that, it's just a 4/4 flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink. I mean, it's got a lot of keywords on it, and I guess the most important one is at the beginning of your end step, you get to proliferate. You get to put another counter on everything. So if it were be a Planeswalker, if it were poison counters, if it were just be +1/+1 counters, you get to boost everything. And it's an angel horror, so I don't know. Randomly, maybe there's also some synergy with angels, but I doubt it. Alright, so I will start this thing off with Winding Constrictor, probably a friend of the Atraxa. For a black and a green, you've got a 2/3 snaky. If one or more counters would be placed on an artifact or creature you control, that many of those counters +1 are placed on that permanent instead. So if you're going to basically up the ante with proliferate, we're going to double the count, more or less double the counters when we do this. And if you would get one or more counters, you get that many of those counters +1 instead. All right. Beanpot says, one word, Planeswalkers. Which Planeswalkers? Hello, humans. Tommy says, played against Atraxa on Friday. That was Phyrexian Tribal. Look, see? There's even more synergy, perhaps, with the Phyrexians. Parallax Wave is a favorite of mine. All right, let's look at Parallax Wave. That is a nasty old card. Man, I have not heard the words of Parallax Wave for billions of years. For a white to... Whoops. Hold on, we gotta... we need the music. Where's our music? It's never Coffee and MTG without the music. Parallax Wave, white 2 generic enchantment. Fading 5, remove a fading counter from Parallax Wave. Exile target creature. When Parallax Wave leaves the battlefield, each player returns to the battlefield all cards he or she owns exiled with Parallax Wave. So what you're telling me here is that when we get the Atraxa out... I guess I don't have to look it up. Atraxa will keep fading up for forever. So we can keep removing fading counters, exiling things, and then we're never going to lose the Parallax Wave because Atraxa's ability with Proliferate will say, no, we're not going to lose anything. The Parallax Wave will stay there perpetually for forever. That's actually an interesting lock that I never heard of. Kyle Driver with the super chat. Thank you so much. Good morning. I love Abzan. Is that a thing in Modern? Not at the moment. Not doing very well. Suomi, Atraxa, and Unspeakable Symbol, good synergy. The Unspeakable Symbol. What is the Unspeakable Symbol? Black, 1 generic, pay 3 life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Is that good synergy? I guess what you could do is you've got 40 life, right? You could use that 40 life for whatever. I mean, you're in no danger of dying through creature combat to anybody. So you pay 3 life, put counters on whatever random creatures you want, and then you're going to proliferate. And those turns add up, and the counters add up. Any not in red? What does this mean? Trax is not a very red creature, in my opinion. It's like there's nothing red in Atraxa. Alright, what else can we put in an Atraxa deck? Let's say we've got the Planeswalkers. Apparently a Johnny is a hot one. The Sleeper Agent. You could also play, you can play Teferi. You can play all the good Planeswalkers. A white-green, 1 generic, and you can play a Phyrexian of a hybrid green or white. 4 loyalty, and it'll be completed if you paid 2 life to cast this thing. +1, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or a Planeswalker card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it onto the bottom of your library. You're going to go -3 and distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until end of turn. And then -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. This is like the ultimate this is like the ultimate synergy with this card. So you can distribute the +1/+1 counters and you're going to buff them up. But you also give people poison. So the clock is ticking. For every turn that the game keeps going on, Atraxa is going to buff up your poison +1/+1/+1 until you hit 10, and then you be dead. Herald of Leshrac for the memes. Herald of Leshrac. Hey, you can meme all day. Anything is possible in Commander. Black 6 generic for a 2/4 flying creature. Cumulative upkeep, gain control of a land you don't control. That is very bizarre. Herald of Leshrac gets +1/+1 for each land you control, but don't own. When Herald of Leshrac leaves play, each player gains control of each land he or she owns that you don't control. This is a very bizarre card. So at one moment you can own all the lands in play, and then if you can't control all the lands in play, this thing goes bye-bye. Hacksaw Jim Thuggin with the Ichor Rats. Black 1 generic with Infect. When it enters the battlefield, each player gets the poison counter. It's only a 2/1. Hey, and don't sneeze at the 2/1 creature. You know how often people are open in Commander? They got all the mana rocks, they've got all this mana ramp, but they got no creatures. You just go send them in. Send them in for that too. But they're already on the back foot when you get the Ichor Rats in. Dick with the Blink Moth Nexus. How often do people die of Infect? Are you mean Blink Moth Nexus or you mean Ink Moth? I mean, you can have Blink Moth Nexus. That's not a problem. Becomes a 1/1 flying artifact creature with the ability to pay 1, tap. Blink Moth target Blink Moth gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But I think the one that you really want on the battlefield is the Ink Moth Nexus, because this is the infecting dealing creature. Becomes a 1/1 creature with Infect, and you can pump it up because it's a Blink Moth. You can pump it up with your Blink Moth Nexus. And affinity with Hardened Scales. A green enchantment, if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So as you start pumping things, I mean, so basically at the end of every turn, you just double pump everything. You put the counter on, you put another. It's another Winding Constrictor. Magus of the Bargain. Too many cards. I know, you just want to make you're basically building a deck list for us. Let's look at Narset though. Actually, which Narset are you talking about? There's not just one Narset out here. You can't have any of the red ones, so I guess we'll go with Narset, Part of the Veils, the evil one, because each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So don't be trying to play any wheel effects around here. -2, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And because you are playing black, blue, green, white, you basically have access to the best removal suite more or less in the game. There is removal in green, sort of, when it's combined with like black and stuff like that. But for the most part, you got the best removal in black, white, and blue. The red removal is a little bit awkward. It's a little bit clunky. Beanpot, the Ozolith, is also good tech with Atraxa. Those counters gotta move somewhere. The Ozolith. For 1 generic legendary artifact, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So as you're building your board with tons of counters on it, if they die, or if you sacrifice them, you get rid of them, they're all going to go to the Ozolith. And then from the Ozolith, they can go wherever you want. Perhaps perhaps an Infect creature. They can go to, say, where would I get rid of? Well, I can go to the Ichor Rats if you want. It also can go to the Ink Moth Nexus. Jake and Joel, MTG, good morning. Big grats on your beta draft experience. Loved watching that video. Definitely worth picking the Icy Manipulator in Limited. Love your videos. You tell great stories. Have a great week. Thank you so much, Jake and Joel. Also, fellow YouTubers out there, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, we got Znixchiel with the, what's it called? The Vorinclex? Vorin. Isn't that weird Phyrexian card? Oh, and you said Monstrous Raider. So green, 4 generic for a 6/6, trample and haste. Don't underestimate Phyrexian Tribal. They have enough Phyrexian cards out to make it work. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. It's almost as if they had Atraxa in mind when they made this card. If an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So what is this supposed to, like, be good in the Atraxa mirror or something? David J with the super chat, thanks so much. Atraxa goes in the Atraxa deck. That's true. True story. Infinity, Song of Frail Eyes. Green, 1 generic. For a Saga, Chapter 1, until end of turn, creatures you control gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. Same with Chapter 2, but then when we go to Chapter 3, you can pop this thing off. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, and indestructible. That's the important part, because otherwise your creature is going to get blown up until end of turn. I don't understand. How do these games end? Are they literally attack? How often does an Atraxa deck actually win through combat? Can't forget about Doubling Season. Yeah, one of the more expensive cards in... Okay, let's get the Doubling Season. Truth be told, this is like one of the more expensive cards in Commander, even though it looks really slow and clunky. Green, 4 generic. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. And if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that permanent instead. I guess if you have enough of these doubling effects, you know, you're not putting like 1 counter on a card at end of turn anymore. You're putting like 3, 4, 5, to the point like it gets really out of hand and insane. Spartan with the super chat. Azor's Elocutors. I have no idea what that is, so someone in the comment section is going to remind me that I've completely butchered the pronunciation. Okay, we got a hybrid of Azorius, 3 generic for a 3/5. Human Advisor. It's going to advise you how this game is going to go. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on Azor's Elocutors. Then if Azor's has 5 or more filibuster counters on it, you win the game. Got to filibuster that thing in. Whenever a source deals damage to you, remove a filibuster counter from Azor's Elocutors. That's actually pretty sick. This is pretty good protection. It's going to at the beginning of your you put a counter on it. Then if you take damage, source deals damage, you remove a counter. But you're going to continuously put counters on this. It's almost like we've turned into a prison deck. Between Parallax Wave and Azor's Elocutors, I mean, they're not going to deal any damage to you. You can just... This card makes all my friends attack me, of course. I'm sure, like, once you reveal Atraxa for the game, it will also make everyone attack you. Alright, you heard the music. We're gonna go through way more cards that go in an Atraxa deck. But until then, we gotta thank our sponsors, FusionGamingOnline.com. Deal of the week this week. I mean, by the way, you can get all your Atraxa cards from Fusion Gaming. It would help me if you did. Deal of the week this week, though, save 20% off old gold border sets. Guess it's a good time to give a deal on those black border pointy Mox Sapphires, Black Lotuses, and Underground Seas. There's a little bit of a... Yeah, basically, no, gold border is back. Gold Border is back with the, what is it, the 30th anniversary series of these proxies. So you're going to get it, you're going to save 20% off all the Gold Border sets at FusionGamingOnline.com. And when you're purchasing anything at Fusion Gaming, don't forget to use coupon code Nikachu, of course, to get 5% off all your purchases. Also supports the channel. We're also going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place for renting Magic cards online. Your ability to play any deck, any format, anytime you want. I can't speak that, you know, Commander is a really good, enjoyable experience 4-on-4 or 1-on-3. I don't know how you guys describe it. But 1-on-1, it's fun. They've got, like, semi-competitive Commander online, but in the 1-on-1 format. You can support the channel using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or save 10% off your first 2 months using coupon code Nikachu_RUE. Alright, now back to the Commander cards. Back to that Commander goodness. So basically, so long as you have enough of these up, it's never... If you have this thing on the battlefield, you have to deal a lot of damage, I guess. Whenever a source... Oh, you have to remove one, though. So if someone pings you for one, you have no choice but to get rid of it. I like the card, though. I like the stock. Then we've got Alex with the super chat. Deep Glow Skate. We have blue for generic for a 3/3 fishy. When Deep Glow Skate enters the battlefield, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. So if we've got 5 counters... Oh, but it doesn't hit... It's only permanents, not players. Okay, so it's not supremely broken. I thought, oh my god, you're at 5 Infect? Well, boom. The skate. I'm gonna double it up to, you know, 10. But it's just the permanents on the battlefield. Which is not bad. Which is not bad. You know, those counters on those Infect creatures, it still matters. It still counts. And we've got Kyle Driver with the super chat. My Locust God deck gets me the most hate. Are you the Locust guy? Can't remember. There is a oh no, yeah, there was a Scarab God. There was a Scarab God person in chat before. Always pumping up the Scarab God thing. Locust sounds quite annoying. Is that like a Storm combo deck? All right, Beam Pot, Helix Pinnacle. Helix Pinnacle, if you want to win the jank way. Well, there is ways of gaining a ton of mana with this deck, right? So green, Shroud, X, put X tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 100 or more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game. And I'm sure there are many ways. There is, isn't that, what is it called? Cornucopia? Astral Corn. Is that how it's spelled? No. That's not it. Oh god. Astral Corn... New? Oh, I'm not spelling corn. That's my problem. This looks good. So it's XXX, enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it, but you can tap out a color, add 1 mana of any color for each charge counter on Astral Cornucopia, and over time, this will just get bigger. And, you know, every single turn, you're going to get another charge counter on this thing. It's going to add more mana. I don't know if that's probably a really clunky way to add mana for the Helix Pinnacle. There's probably some infinite mana combos that we can always use, but that is one way of doing it. All right, we got what? Whoops, that's the wrong one. Hold on. There we go. I like using that sound effect. Sagas start with Binding of the Old Gods. Oh, right! Okay, so, like, how does this work? Binding of the... Or is it bind? Oh, oh, you mean Binding of the Titans? This card doesn't exist. This Binding of the Old Gods thing. Let's say it's Binding of the Titans. How does that work with Atraxa? So you put a counter. So does that mean you can skip all the way to chapter 3? Sagas under the battlefield, add a lore counter. Or does it... Okay, you start off at 1. End of turn, it goes immediately to 2. So you're ramping with sagas. Is that how this works? That is interesting. Because it is a counter. You add a lore counter. You add it again. Boom. Triggers like chapter 2. Next turn, triggers chapter 3. Interesting. Neat stuff. Binding the Old Gods. Not... Okay, hold on. Binding the Old Gods. They like to get bound. Aha, black, green, 2 generic. Destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. Then, end of turn, go straight to Chapter 2. Search your library for a force card, put onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. I missed that the first few Saga cards that we got. Then Chapter 3, creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. The last one is a little bit underwhelming, in my opinion. Alright, next we got Almond. Skitherix is fun. Skitherix. Who are you here? Black, 3 generic for a 4/4 flying Infect. That is a big Infect creature. That's a pretty chunky Infect. I don't know if I've ever seen an Infect creature. I mean, it's either like 2 power or it's Blightsteel Colossus. You know what I mean? I never saw anything between. Alright, so we have a 4/4 Infector. Black gains haste until end of turn. Okay. And then black, regenerate the Skitherix. And what do you mean by it's fun? You mean it's fun for you, but it's not fun for anybody else? Wait, why are we looking at an Atraxa Commander deck list? I'm pretty sure this is against the rules here. Who's looking? Am I looking? Did you guys see? Did you guys see me look at a list? Maybe you saw something. MG Fox, as foretold. All right. What would they use this for? I mean, you can do... Oh, by the way, thank you very much for the super chat. Blue 2 generic enchantment. Oh, because you can put the counters on this thing. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on as foretold. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with mana value X or less, where X is the number of time counters on as foretold. It is the blue ether vial, but for spells and for anything. And the Atraxa is going to make sure that it gets ramped up. So you can start playing spells for free. All right, we got Dylan with the super chat. Thank you so much. Phyrexian Swarmlord. Another Phyrexian card. Green, 4 generic. Wow, they got a lot of infectors. I guess these are all the infectors that exist that I never saw. That don't make the cut for modern, but make plenty of the cut for commander. Infect 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 green insect creature token with Infect onto the battlefield. For each poison counter your opponents control. What? For each poison counter your opponents have, you get a green insect. So, like, it makes a bad situation worse. Well, what a way to end the game. I'm guessing these Atraxa matchups don't last very long. Bobby with Soul Ring! Alright, let's sneak that one in there. Actually, is this card good? You can't cast Atraxa off this thing. I mean, like, whatever, it's Soul Ring, right? You can cast your doubling season off of this thing. You guys can do whatever you want. You know, frankly, there are no rules. Your voice when you said almond. I don't remember that. We'll be starting off with Wayfarer's Bauble. Wayfarer's Bauble. Isn't that just like a mana fixer or something? 1 mana, pay 2, tap, sacrifice Wayfarer's Bauble, search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. A little underwhelming, but does the job. The Chain Veil. 4 mana, legendary artifact. Oh, it's $24. I swear when this thing came out, it was like $1. Nobody wanted this thing. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability of a Planeswalker this turn, you lose 2 life. What? At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't. So you're getting punished for not using your loyalty abilities. Pay 4, tap, for each Planeswalker you control, you may activate one of its loyalty abilities once each turn as though it had none of its loyalty abilities. Hold on, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated this turn. That's crazy. Alright, so this is like the Superfriends card. MG Fox, Teferi, Master of Time. So good in EDH. Teferi. The Master. Okay, let's slow things down. Pick up the pace. It's always talk about speed or slowing things down. All right, we got blue, blue, 2 generic. For a 3 loyalty Planeswalker, you may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time, on any player's turn. Anytime you could cast an instant. That's fantastic. Pass the turn. You go +1, draw a card, then discard a card. Oh yeah, so in Commander, this card's like way more broken. So you go +1, then pass the turn, +1, pass the turn, +1, pass the turn, +1, and then you're already at like 7 loyalty. Then you go -3, target creature you don't control phases out. It's going to be your commander, not mine. And then -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. You better believe it's going to be over. And on top of that, hold on, so you still proliferate. You also get to proliferate. You get a little extra +1 at the end of the original turn this thing comes into play. This is only expensive because of Atraxa's Commander Superfriends decks. The Superfriends thing, that's a real thing. Squid Flamed Grateful Appreciation. Such card does not exist. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It's Apparition. I didn't read it right. I wanted to read Appreciation. A white 1/1. Sorry, white 1 generic for a 1/1 flyer. When Grateful Apparition deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. I have to gotta look at a game where this. It doesn't seem real to me that like proliferate would be so broken in EDH. It actually doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, won't you get combo killed or something? But I guess you're blue and black. I mean, I guess you play with Teferi Time Raveler or something to protect yourself. You need some protection to protect yourself against all the harsher things out there. Dark Star Ashura for the huge super chat. Resourceful Defense, if that's already been called in, check Power Conduit. We didn't see Resourceful Defense. I don't even know if we've seen any common cards in the Atraxa deck yet. Resourceful Defense. For 1 white and 2 generic, we got an enchantment. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control. Oh, so it's like the Ozolith. And if we sack things, we can get all the counters on one thing and then go in for a big attack. White 4 generic, move any number of counters from target permanent you control to another target permanent. That's one way of doing it. Was Vorinclex mentioned already? Yes, it was. It was MTG Gaming Bob. MG Fox. Contagion Engine. Contagion Engine. We gotta do something with those counters. Where are we gonna move the counters? From the Resourceful Defense. Should also be called Resourceful Attack. Maybe Contagion Engine. 6 mana. When it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player controls. Well, that's nasty. And then you and I just noticed a lot of these proliferate effects, you gotta sink some mana into it, just like Contagion Engine. Pay 4 mana, tap, proliferate, and then you do it again. But with Atraxa, you don't have to do squat. Is that the real value? You basically proliferate for free. It's free real estate. Alright, wow, follow the Thran for evilness. Fall of the Thran. It danger. Follow the Thran. White, 5 generic. Holy smokes! Destroy all the lands. Okay, then we can take it up really quickly. Each player returns 2 land cards from the graveyard to the battlefield, and you do it again. Really? I thought you just want to blow up all the lands and then leave them screwed. Seems like a plan. Almond with the super chat. Evolution Sage. Green 2 generic, Elf Druid. It's a 3/2 creature. Whenever a land enters the battlefield and you control, proliferate. That's busted. That actually looks busted. That's crazy. That easily. Fetch land, proliferate, fetch again. That can get out of control really quickly. I think that gets out of control. And then you ramp at the same time. You put another land in play. Dark Sunrose says, has Master Biomancer been mentioned? Nope. Master Biomancer. Oh, this is the one. Blue, green, 2 generic, 2/4. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to Master Biomancer's power, and as a mutant in addition to its other types. Jay says you can proliferate Fall of the Thran before Hold on, how does this work? You can proliferate Fall of the Thran before the destroy effect goes off and just have all the lands destroyed anyway? Oh, so in response... But how do you do that? Okay, so hold on, do you, so you have to proliferate. Oh, I get what you're saying. Well, why don't you just play Armageddon then? This seems like a really fancy way to Armageddon. But in theory, you could, like, play this, then with Evolution Sage, perhaps crack 2 fetch lands, move it up to Chapter 2 and 3, then blow up, and then Chapter 1 resolves, if I understand this correctly. It's pretty crazy. Power Conduit! Fun with Fall of the Thran. Two mana. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Choose one. Put a charge counter on target artifact. Put a +1/+1 counter on target art. Oh, target creature. Alright, so we are perpetually going to destroy. So, Chapter 1. Destroy all lands. And then we're going to go Power Conduit. Remove a counter from a permanent you control. And then, well, anyway, we're going to remove it from the... Fall of the Thran. Oops, did I do this right? Okay, hold on. Okay, so the point is we're going to remove the counter. And we're constantly going to go to Chapter 1. What else can we do that? That is also synergy with Resourceful Defense. We're just perpetually leaving people with no lands. That's nasty. That's very rude. But you know what? It's command. You probably have, like, Soul Ring and a bunch of other mana rocks, so who cares? People love the mana rocks. Fall of the Thran is Armageddon, just in 3 bite-sized chapters. And it seems like it looks like you have there's a lot of room to perpetually do this forever. I can see why this deck is so strong. But it only looks like it's strong if they let you durdle around and do this for forever. There's a lot of synergy, but you need to get all the pieces in play. And if you don't have all the pieces, I mean, you're just some random creature-ish deck. Toxrill the Corrosive for the Groans. Toxrill. Toxrill the Corrosive. Black, 5 generic for a 7/7. At the beginning of each end step, put a Slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each Slime counter on them. And then whenever a creature you don't control with a Slime counter on it dies, you get a 1/1 black slug creature token. You can sack the slugs, a blue-black, sack a slug, draw a card. Frosty the Ghostman says, Atraxa decks look like they're doing nothing until they win out of nowhere. I always aggro them off the bat for that reason. Oh, they revealed Atraxa! Go get him! Go get him. Go do this. A-Dog says, LOL, this is the most specific live stream you've ever done. Good morning. I know. You know, I didn't do a commander, like, specific commander live stream for a while, so. Almond with another super chat. Thank you so much. The Ozolith is another funny card. Oh, yeah, we looked at one. Ozolith. What's funny is I've felt the pain of this card in Modern, so I understand how powerful this card can be in Commander. Do they have many sack outlets, though? Like, what makes this card good in Modern is you sack a creature with a bunch of counters on it, goes to the Ozolith, then you reroute them to the creature that you want it to be on. Because at the beginning of your... So, whenever something dies, put all the counters on the Ozolith, and then at the beginning of your combat on your turn, all the counters from the Ozolith go to one target creature. Yeah, Darkstar Ashura says, oh wait, any card for an Atraxa deck? Would it be okay to call Atraxa? Yes, we've already got that one. We heard that one, Darkstar. Ha ha ha. Yes, Atraxa itself. So if anyone doesn't know what Atraxa does, black, blue, white, green, 4/4. Flying Vigilant, Death Touch, Lifelink. Lifelink, Angel Horror. How much is the average Atraxa deck? I don't know. $1,000 maybe? I mean, like, what's the average of any commander deck? You could make it like some people can make their deck like $2 grand, $5 grand, 10 grand, depending how many dual lands you want to put in it. Yeah, Underground Sea. Yeah, it's $50 to 55,000. I'm sure it can go way higher. Like Underground Sea is like almost, well, maybe it's like close to like $600. Depending how well conditioned you want your Atraxa deck. If you want an MP Atraxa deck, it could be $5,000. You want near mint Atraxa deck, could be $10,000. Ash says, did we do a Hapatra? We did not. Hapatra. The Vizier. Of course, black, green for a 2/2. Whenever a Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons, deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So as you spread out the 1/1 counters, you get tons more snake creature tokens, and you start killing the creatures. It works. Hardcore Economist says, played Underground Sea, heavily played, $450. Check this morning. Looks like Hardcore Economist looking to buy some heavily played commander. Sutach with the Magistrate Scepter. 3 generic, 4 tap, put a charge counter on Magistrate Scepter, which is going to get proliferated. Tap, remove 3 charge counters from Magistrate Scepter. Take an extra turn after this one. That seems broken. And it seems actually way too easy to pull off. Who likes extra turn cards? Personally, I do. I like extra turn. I'm the blue mage around here, so I'm allowed to. Jake and Joel love Hapetra. Just haven't gotten a ton of fantastic support. Need another Amonkhet set. Is it a legendary creature? Oh, you want to make a commander deck out of this. Oops. Fertilid should be a good one. It's funny, no one's mentioned any removal or anything like, I don't know. I don't want to say Fatal Push because that sounds like a pretty underwhelming card for Commander. Fertilid! Green 2 generic for a 0/0, but it's going to enter the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters. Green 1 generic, remove a +1/+1 counter from Fertilid. Target player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffles their library. Binding of Old God. Did we do this one? I think we did the binding one, whatever it was, and again we misnamed it. Oh my God! Hold on, does that work? White 2 generic. Players can't get counters. Counters can't be. Well, that's. I think I've been trolled. I've been trolled around here. Gideon, Champion of Justice, is a one I see a lot. Of Justice. We've got a white 2 generic, 4 loyalty, Planeswalker, +1. Put a loyalty counter on Gideon, Champion of Justice for each creature target opponent controls. Somebody's got to have like a ton of creatures out there, and then pay 0 until end of turn. Gideon becomes a human soldier creature, power and toughness each equal to the number of loyalty counters on him, and gains indestructible. He is still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage, basically indestructible. You're not touching the Gideon, but -15. Exile all other permanents and just leave your Gideon. Well, you think Gideon is just going to do the job? Seems pretty ambitious. Glenzie, we did Winding Constrictor. It was actually my choice. Did we do Doubling Season? I can't remember. One of them we did Doubling Season. Yeah, we think we did a Doubling Season. There's another Doubling card. I don't remember what it's called, though. Hold on. King Ginger says Solemnity plus Decree of Silence. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, counter that spell and put depletion counter on Decree of Silence. If there are 3 or more depletion counters on Decree of Silence, sacrifice it. Well, yeah, well, that's a combo, but I don't know if you want to have this combo in an Atraxa deck. Almond with the super chat. Blow your own thing up with Assassin's Trophy and Evolution Sage. Okay, hold on. We got Assassin's Trophy. Destroy target permanent. It's an opponent. Destroy target permanent and opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land, put onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle. I don't get that. Blow your own thing up with Assassin's Trophy and then Evolution Sage? I don't understand this. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control. You can't target your own thing, though, is the problem. Destroy target permanent opponent controls. An opponent. This combo don't work. Combo don't work. We've got David with the cross. How many crosses out there? Oh, there is a lot, apparently. Cross, defense, contractor. Oh, another fellow, probably commander. Blue, white, green, 1 generic for a 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a shield counter on target creature and opponent controls. What? The opponent? Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you don't control, tap that creature and goad it against trample until your next turn. Seems awkward, but sure. We've got Armageddon here. Oh, an inexorable tide. Okay, let's look at inexorable. Blue, 3 generic enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. True story. True story. Man, this proliferating really can get out of hand, and I can see with the winding constrictors and the hardens. Did we even talk about? Do they have hardened scales? I imagine. I don't think we mentioned hardened scales. And with like hardened scales, you just like put counters on these things like crazy. Did we do Simic Ascendancy? We did not do the Simic Ascendancy. Oh, this is a win condition, isn't it? If my memory bank serves me correctly. Blue, green for an enchantment. You can also pay a blue, green, 1 generic to put a counter on target creature you control. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. We're growing. We're learning, people. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. If Atraxa, it's a race. If Atraxa is going to kill you, the poison counters, the Simic Ascendancy, it's a huge race. The Fishmonger with the super chat. What are we going to use? I need more sound effects for the super chats. Fuel for the cause. If you play with or against Atraxa, what's the main way you lose? I would imagine with Infect counters, because that sounds like the easiest way to kill like everybody at once. Fuel for the cause, blue, 2 generic, instant, counter target spell, then proliferate. Love it! Counter spell and proliferate. If you thought things weren't getting worse, well, they just got worse. Now we've got the Darkstar Ashura with the Dark Steel Reactor. For mana, Darksteel Reactor is indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Darksteel Reactor, and I will. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game. Another I win the game card out of nowhere. How careful you got to be when you play this card, because the moment you play Darksteel Reactor, everyone's going to be like, okay, go get him. They're going to win with Darksteel Reactor or something. MG Fox, Cathar's Crusade. White, 3 generic for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. They get so big so fast. And Almond with the super chat. Hand of the Praetors. Is stupid for Infect. Black 3 generic for a 3/2 Infect or other creatures you control with Infect at +1/+1. Oh yes, for the Infect tribal out there. Whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. It's an easy way to start spreading the poison over everyone and then start building up the counters with the proliferate. Can't even point removal it, bruh. I don't know what this was first. Or I don't know what this is in regards. Energizer, Emergent Ultimatum. Emergent Ultimatum. The hell is this? Blue. Oh, it's something big, though. Blue, green, black. Sorcery. Search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names and exile them. An opponent chooses one of those cards. Shuffle that card into your library. You may cast the other cards without paying their mana cost. Exile Emergent Ultimatum. So if you're missing anything, well, you're gonna get it. Is this just like a modern day, like, what's it called? Intuition? Where you're basically intuitioning for like 3 of the same card. And so in this case, you're intuitioning for like, or emergent ultimating for a very specific effect that you need. Virulent Drake. The hell is this? Virulent. Doesn't exist. Lord Magicus. How about Vir? Can I find a Drake here? Oh, there's a lot of... Oh, maybe Viral Drake is what you meant? I think you meant Viral Drake. Blue 3 generic for a 1/4 flying infector, also with Proliferate. And you get to smack him with that that damage over the top. Oh, and I like this one from Zishnil, Tanglewire. This has gotta be good. Holy moly. 3 mana. You gotta respect Tanglewire. If you don't respect Tanglewire gonna get you. 3 mana for Fading 4. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player taps an untapped artifact, creature, or land he or she controls for each fade counter on Tanglewire. So you basically tap your board. And this thing can get insane. It starts at 4, but then it can go 5, 6, 7, and 8. You can make sure like everyone's locked out. They basically have to play at instant speed at their upkeep or they're not gonna do anything. My god. It is cost some money. It's got like a $40 secret lair. I like this. Maybe this is a bit janky. I don't know. Maybe this is completely unnecessary. You could just play this card in your deck for the pain. Make them feel... If you want to make your opponents feel pain. If you're trying to lose friends or whatever, you can play Tanglewire. I'm getting tired of being called for Commander Night every night. Alright, we're just going to play Tanglewires all day. Pion Pion. Let's go look at Yawgmoth. I'm sure it's... the Yawgmoth, the Thran Physician. Oh yeah, you can like proliferate with this card as well. Black 2 generic for a 2/4. Pro-humans. Human itself. Human cleric. Pay 1 life, sack a creature. Put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. And draw a card. So you can snipe off your opponent's stuff. And you can spread those -1/-1 counters on them to proliferate. So black, discard a card, proliferate easily. Or just pass the turn. That works. Winter Orb is better. Would that work in this deck? I can't tell if Winter Orb has good synergy. Pay 2, as long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than 1 land during each of their untap steps. Tanglewire is CEDH? Well, then it's good enough for EDH. What else we got here? Dark Star. If you want jank, there's Lighthouse. Lighthouse Chronologist. I bought a bunch of foils of this thing because I thought it was just neat. Thought this was really cool. Blue 1 generic for a 1/3 wizard, but for a blue, you get to level it up. And if it gets to level 4 to 6, it's a 2/4 creature, which is completely useless. It probably should just be a 1/1 that turns into a 1/3. But at level 7, at the beginning of each end step, so at the end of your turn, you get an extra... At the beginning of each end step, if it's not your turn, take an extra turn after this one. I think Yawgmoth is very anti-humans, to be honest. It is very anti-humans. Dick says, brain in a jar. This card work? We've got Brain in the Jar, 2 mana, pay 1 tap, put a charge counter on Brain in the Jar. Then you may cast an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in the Jar from your hand without paying its mana cost. Pay 3 mana, taps, remove X charge counters from Brain in the Jar, scry X. That's interesting. It's like, sort of like a weird ether vial for spells, but then you can like remove all the counters and scry. It's like you lost your entire investment. Okay, Aztec guy says Colonian Hydra. Colonian Hydra. So green 3 generic for a 0/0 trampler. Enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it, and then whenever it attacks, double the number of counters on it for each creature you control. Woof! I imagine there are certain board states where it's just attacking for lethal. Alright, attack. It like, I don't know, comes into play with 20 counters. You attack for 40 and then it's over. Even Baloths fear its feeding time. How many heads? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Doesn't seem... It comes with 4 counters, but 6 heads in the art. Not very flavorful, in my opinion. Oh, but you like Blasting Zone. Yeah, sure, you could take this thing up. Where's Blasting Zone? Blast. What was I missing here? Something zone. Blast Zone? Oh, I was thinking Blast Zone. Whatever. Oh, there's a new Blast Zone coming out! Oh, I just know. In the Brothers War, they're coming out with Blast Zone again. Enters the battlefield with a charge counter at pay one, tap to add a generic. Oh, and I love the art. Oh, this is great because I hated the other art. Tap, add a colorless, then pay XX, put X charge counters on Blast Zone. But then you can take it up with Proliferate, and then you sack the Blast Zone, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to number of charge counters on Blast Zone. Is there a Paradox Zone? There's a Paradox Wave. Love your avatar, Glenzy, actually. Look at that avatar. It's a duck. It's very cute, but then it's got the Phyrexian symbol on it, so, you know, you get pecked by that duck, you're gonna get sick. I love it. Paradox Zone, green for generic. Here's a battlefield with a growth counter on it at the beginning of your end step. Double the number of growth counters on Paradox Zone. Then create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of growth counters on Paradox Zone. Yeah, the Phyrexian duck. Love that. That is a great avatar. Egoish, Strionic Resonator. Two mana, pay 2, tap, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Yeah, oh, I love this. Mess with the pack, you get the Infect. You're welcome, Glenzy. I like that. Mess with the pack, you get the Infect. Are there any Phyrexian ducks in Magic? I mean, there could be. Page Man, what about Broker's Ascendancy just to make things worse? Absolutely, we love to make things worse. Broker's Ascendancy. Blue, white, green enchantment. I noticed there's a lot of enchantments in the Atraxa deck, so it's like really hard to deal with. Because all those effects, they compound. These are all compounding effects, so if you have enough of these enchantments, the sagas, the creatures, they really go crazy. At the beginning of each end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. Basically, the Superfriends synergy. The new Jared. I don't know. Is there a new Jared? Which one's the new one? This one? I guess? Oh no, it can't be because that one, we can't use that one. We can't use either of these. They're not in the color identity. They're red. Even a modern player like me can see that Jared is unplayable in the Atraxa deck. It goes against the color identity. You can pay 2 life for the duck instead of paying 1 white in the mana cost. Everflowing Chalice, there we go. We need a little bit. We need some ramp in the Atraxa deck. 0 multi-kicker 2. When it enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked, and you can tap. Add a colorless for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. It's gonna turn into a super. Well, I guess not. It's not really a Soul Ring. Still got a multi-kicker it for 2. But then it's gonna get out of control. It's gonna add a lot of mana. Does a lot of stuff. We got Z-Tac, Sword of Truth and Justice. The truth, you can't handle the truth. 3 mana. Equipped creature gets pro blue and white and +2/+2. Whenever it deals damage to a player, put a counter on a creature you control, then proliferate again. My god, this proliferating thing is out of control. Equipped for 2 mana. Sultai Ascendancy. We didn't look at that one. Green, blue, black. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest on top of your library in any order. Let's go find the good stuff that you need. It's an enchantment. If you want to be evil, Isochron Scepter. I like it. Isochron Scepter. We gotta imprint something. It's gotta be 2 mana or less. You can pay 2 mana, tap, copy the exiled card, then we could put the mana drain on it. We need counter spells. I don't know, don't they play counter spells in Atraxa? Counter target spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's mana value. Although I have to admit that this mana is awkward. Like in Atraxa, there's a lot of like heavy colored spells, like, you know, like the Ascendancies and Atraxa itself. You can't use the colorless mana so well. Jace, Unraveler of Secrets. What is Jace unraveling here? Blue, 3 generic, 5 loyalty, +1, scry 1, then draw a card. -2, return target creature to its owner's hand. I imagine you would put your own creatures in your hand if they have ETBs back into your hand. And then -8, you get an emblem with whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, counter that spell. That's right, Nikachu on Commander. Man who knows nothing about Commander makes content for Commander. I might as well. A lot of people, they're like really surprised that I made like the top 8 of the 30th anniversary in Las Vegas, and they just assume I'm some Commander player. I'm just some, you know, I'm just the casual Commander content creator out there. No. I'm actually the real deal. I don't know anything about Commander. That's why I rely on you guys. And we've got MG Fox again with a beautiful super chat. Replicating ring. Three mana. Oh, snow artifact. Tap. Add 1 mana of any color. At the beginning of your upkeep, though, put a night counter on Replicating Ring. If it has 8 or more night counters, remove all of them and create 8 colorless snow artifact tokens named Replicating Ring with add 1 mana of any color. That's really weird. That's right. I am the real deal. Why we are here. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Jonas! Defiler of Vigor. We got the Defiler. Green, 3 generic for a 6/6 Phyrexian Worm Trampler. As an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost green less to cast if you paid life this way. Okay, so it basically gives everything Phyrexian mana. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay, and whenever you cast a green permanent spell, you can put a counter on each creature you control. People love Cart the Lion for some reason. Alright, what's up with... Oh yeah, is this the Planeswalker Fetcher? The intuition for Planeswalkers. Green, 2 generic for a 3/5 human warrior. Enters the battlefield. Whenever Cart the Lion enters the battlefield or a Planeswalker you control dies, look at the top 7 cards of your library. That's deep! We're going deep with Karth here. You may reveal a Planeswalker card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Planeswalker loyalty abilities you activate cost an additional +1... Oh, Planeswalker loyalty abilities you activate cost an additional +1 to activate? Oh, that's good. For once, it sounded like they were trying to tax me here, but actually there's no tax at all. They're actually just giving me, instead of going -2, it's just -1 now. Instead of +2, it's +3 now. I think this card actually is... It looks broken. 7 cards deep? I think it's a bit too deep. We're going too deep with this card. Trevor just trolling me here with the basic island. I mean, that will go in an Atraxa deck. We did Winding Constrictor. Oath of Teferi from Armageddon. What does this card do? Blue, 3 generic legendary enchantment. When Oath of Teferi enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You may activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than once. This is the Superfriends card. So what can you do here? You could like... Oh, you go ham with Teferi Master of Time. You can make a Teferi Tribal deck. Is that possible? Making Teferi Tribal in Commander? Have they made enough legendary creatures and Planeswalkers named Teferi? Thrumming Bird. Thrumming Bird. Says Pedgeman. Blue 1 generic, flying 1/1. Deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. And it's cheap. It's really easy to get that thing online. And even and it's also hard to block. Phyrexian Bird Horror. Glenzie, Energy Vortex. I can tell some of you probably have an Atraxa deck out there. Some of you are contributing more than others. Blue, 3 generic. When you play Energy Vortex, choose target opponent. At the beginning of your end step, remove all energy counters from Energy Vortex. During chosen opponent's upkeep, he or she pays 1 for each energy counter on Energy Vortex, or it deals 3 damage to them, and you can pay X, put X energy counters on Energy Vortex. Use this ability only during your upkeep. So at the beginning of your upkeep, remove all... What? Okay, so you remove all the energy counters, and you put them back, and then you can proliferate them. Got it. Dick says, I'm surprised Blighted Agent has gone, and it hasn't. Blighted Agent. A classic. Here, there's classic Infector. I'm sure that, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's underwhelming. A blue 1 generic 1/1 Infector, unblockable. Maybe that's not good enough. The Dark Sunrose says Audric. Lunarch Marshal is amazing. Alright, white 3 generic for a 3/3 human soldier. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. Hold on, what? At the beginning of each combat, oh, all the creatures. I'm like, a creature has first strike until end of turn if it has first strike. That doesn't make any sense to me. Alright, so they all get first strike if you have first strike. And the same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. You can put all that stuff in there. Glenzie says, I like to do janky things with Atraxa Infect. It's a bit lame for regular play groups. So this was the show for you, Glenzie. I'm glad you showed up. And you showed up with your quacking Infect avatar. Anyway, I loved it. Alright, that's it for Coffee and MTG today. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you like the new time, which is the same time as usual, Monday to Friday, 8 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. But depending on where you fall with daylight savings time, it might have shifted an hour. Thank you so much for everyone supporting the channel with the super chats and becoming members. Helps the channel so much, and also reminds me I gotta be here every morning for you guys because I love doing this show for you. But thank you, because you guys are the show. Without your suggestions, did we do Ozolith? Yes, we did. We did the Ozolith. I think we did it a few more times. Without you guys, I have nothing. I'm nobody. You guys are everybody. You guys are the show. So as usual, keep brewing up those coffees. We'll keep brewing up the magic. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you at the next cup.